Hey guys,
I'm Sarah.
and I'm Carm,
And we're S&C. So it's been a month since our first video, the book club about Big Summer by Jennifer Weiner, and now it's time for part 2, which is the discussion and revealing what book July's gonna be.
So fair warning, this video will contain a ton of spoilers for Big Summer. So if you're not interested in hearing all the spoilers for Big Summer,
we get heated.
we tell everything.
Yes.
Just jump to the end and we'll announce the new book for July, and you can figure out what we're reading and read along with us. But if you are interested, just keep watching. So if you're new and you missed the recap, we'll link that video in the cards, but we'll give you a quick synopsis of the book. This book says that it's a sparkling novel about the complexities of female relationships, the pitfalls of living out loud and online, and the resilience of the human heart. Big Summer is a witty, moving story about family, friendship, and figuring out what matters most. First things first, do we think that that synopsis represents the book?
No.
No. So let's get into it.
Yeah. So in the first video, we mentioned that we'd be creating book discussion questions, and we did that, and we posted the link on the video, and we wrote it in the blog for you guys to follow around and use it with. But if you are new here and you haven't watched that first video, we're gonna leave the link in the description box below for this video. Basically, we created 8 questions that could apply to any of the books we're gonna be doing while filming the book club episodes on YouTube.
We're going to use those questions as a guideline for our book club discussion, and we're going to answer them for you guys right now. Question 1 was, which event in the story causes all others? So Sarah, I'm going to let you answer this first.
Okay, so me and Carmelina were typing out like our questions because we both read the book, and then we were typing out our questions, and I kept asking her thoughts. Just like, whoa, just wait for the video, we're gonna discuss it then. But I wanted to like get it right, and I realized that in like literature there is no right or wrong, so I'm a little scared to share this with you guys all. But I personally thought the inciting moment was when Daphne accepts to be maid of honor at Drew's wedding.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I guess so. I said that the event in the story that causes all others.
Okay, oh, wait, okay, no, okay, so wait, because I have a second bullet point here.
No! Okay, this is the same as what you have right now, was what you already said?
No, but I said that some might consider the flashback when Daphne stood up for herself at the bar could also be an exciting moment in her life. Yeah, I said the night the main
character Daphne tells the guy off in the club, and later her friend Drew for putting her in that position in the first place. Basically, from there, the author opens the plot to Daphne's new social media career because her video goes viral, and B, a friendship that needs rebuilding.
Yeah, so I didn't know if like, because I said I didn't know if a flashback could be an inciting moment, so I picked one in like her present life, but then also like that moment in her life changed kind of like the way her
But you have to think that if she hadn't gone viral with that video, she wouldn't have been a popular Instagram influencer.
Oh, true.
And Drew wouldn't have wanted her at that wedding.
True. Oh my gosh, yeah, that is true. Okay.
So now we've covered off question number 1. So question number 2 is, what is the book's climatic scene? How did the author build up to it?
Okay, you go first this time because like I'm just too embarrassed.
I'll go first. The book's climatic scene was Daphne discovering Leela in her apartment, and they struggle as Daphne admits she knows Layla's true identity. The author built up to this by A, having Daphne leave the car, walk home alone, ponder a previous conversation she had with Barbara, ask Barbara to send a picture of something she saw in the house, enter her apartment alone, and the rest of the event is really up to itself. That is the inciting event.
The inciting? No,
the climatic scene.
Yeah. Okay. So when I wrote out this question, I listed like a whole bunch of different turning points first. So I said like obviously the very first major turning point was when they discovered Drew's body, and then how it set off a series of secrets to be revealed. For instance, that Nick was actually Aiden from the prologue of the book, how Drew did a lap year in California.
But these are all like revelations and not really climatic scenes.
No, that's why I said before, because like for me in my head to find the climactic scene, I needed to like list off like those major like points in the story that ultimately led to it. And so upon like first thinking of it, And then like I realized like maybe it's not the climactic scene, but okay, so I'll just say it. My first initial thought was that the climactic scene was when the trio, Nick, Darcy, and Daphne go to Aditya's apartment. Like I thought originally that was the climactic scene because for so long in the book, Daphne was like, if only I can figure out this guy's name and find out who he was, and it's gotta be him, I gotta track him down. So in my mind, like when I first read it, like that was the climactic scene, because when they finally reach his apartment, they kind of like the last little bit of secrets in Drew's life are revealed, where she was trying to become a better person, and she had this secret lover who wasn't this like typical what you'd think she'd want in a mate. Like it wasn't just about his outwardly appearance, it was about his kind heart and stuff like that. So I thought that was the climactic scene, but then I'm thinking that might have just been the final scene for the theme of female friendship, because
she really didn't know very much about her friend.
Exactly, and she got that closure because Aditya was saying, you know, she really thought you were so brave.
She talked about you.
She really wanted to be more like you.
Yeah.
So then I realized, I was like, okay, that's not the climactic scene. That's just the scene of closure on the theme of friendship. And then I wrote that, yeah, the climactic scene would be when Daphne goes into her apartment alone. Leela is there waiting for her.
Yeah.
So question 3 is, does the book's ending resolve the plot? If it doesn't, do you think this was intentional? What else do you want to know? That's a lot. That's a big question.
For us, it's a big question.
Because like we've been like talking this book throughout, like
since we finished
yes, and it's been a while, and it's almost like we're fighting with the author. Like we're like listing off these like debate points that we want to go over for why we feel, you know, Jennifer didn't do her best in resolving all of the issues that was mentioned in the book. So I wrote, yes, technically the plot is resolved. You know, there was the murder. We found out who the murderer was. Little like
the consequential events of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. In points of like themes and motifs and techniques that the author utilized at the first part of the book, they were just not carried
they fell
over.
Through, yeah.
Yeah, and so it left the book feeling unsettled and
unfinished.
Yeah.
What I said is it did and it didn't. It did resolve the notion that people can change, not to judge a book by its cover, and for that I wrote, like, as Drew, she would judge people, but she was judged. Leela was judged. People thought that, you know, they totally forgot about her, and all of a sudden she is
the successful, thriving woman, but like really she has issues of her own. She has
issues. Nick, he was judged. Daphne thought that he was just another affluent, good-looking man in the Cape. Daphne, she's been judged too.
But she judges,
he was judged. Daphne judged him by his appearance, and all these characters were judged. So they struggled with or represented someone in the book who was prejudged before their true identity was revealed. And it resolved Daphne's idea of having to settle in a relationship in fear that a mediocre romance was all she'd ever deserve. It didn't resolve other aspects of the book, so I took mention of things that Sarah and I had discussed, like, since we finished the book. So Drew's complicated relationship with her father, completely unresolved.
Yeah.
Mr. Kavanaugh's dramatic love life, completely unresolved. The mistresses, the themes of loneliness, body positivity, female friendship. I don't think that any of these things were actually completely resolved.
No.
Because there were things where they resolved Drew's friendship, or Daphne's perception of her relationship with Drew, like Sarah said with Aditya. She realized, because the whole book she would say, oh, I just admire Drew. She's everything I want to be. Mm-hmm. But then she found out that Drew felt that same way about her. But her relationship with Darcy was a little rocky.
Yes.
That was never resolved, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
There were a lot of female relationships. They never touched upon her relationship with her grandmother or her mother. Yeah. These were things that were completely inconsequential, but could have been addressed closer to the end of the book.
And could have made the book, like, so much more impactful. Yeah. And a lot of, like you were saying, like, a lot of the issues that she wanted to bring up, like,
they were,
you know,
influence,
like the lifestyle of an influencer, lifestyle of a plus size influencer, but they they weren't developed. They were just
Yeah.
used as crutches
Yeah.
to give a book a little bit of backstory.
Yeah.
But they were, it could have been so great.
I do think that this was intentional, though. I don't think the author wanted to go down all those other roads in fear it wouldn't be a simple beach read. I wish I could know more about Nick's mother's murder.
Yeah.
It was such a random addition to the story, and I felt like there could have been more there.
Especially the way his mother was murdered.
Random.
On acts, like random.
It's almost like,
target.
why even bring it up?
Yeah, or why make it
And
a
even it
murder?
was-
Why couldn't it?
And it was also alluded to. Yeah, it could have been a suicide. She was so lonely that she felt that was the.
And then
only
there would have
option.
been
a bunch of women in the book that were lonely and isolated.
yes,
Lila was
exactly.
isolated from her family. Daphne felt isolated from other people in her community.
From society.
Yeah, Drew was isolated from her family because she did not think that she had the same morals as them.
Yeah.
It's just, I really think that was so random and it just didn't need to be in the book.
Yeah.
And even the fact that it was alluded to in the prologue, and we'll get to that later because I mention it in another question, but this woman's murder was alluded to in the prologue. For what reason, I'm really not sure.
So I just have a couple more points for this question about does the author resolve the ending. So yes, we've kind of established she kind of missed the mark on a lot of things. And I just said, so she didn't address a lot of the themes that she was really building up in that first part. Themes of isolation, like that we said, but also the theme of self-acceptance. And that really stuck with me because you're writing this novel where so many revelations are coming to the narrator. She's learning about so much about what she didn't know and how she prejudged. But yet she's not changing. How can you go through so much, learn so much, and still not change?
Yeah.
It was very one-dimensional because a good character would change and would have that epiphany.
Or not, an epiphany.
Yeah.
Not necessarily change.
Not change.
But at least be like, oh wow.
Yeah, I gotta stop doing this. So for example, I wrote, the theme of self-acceptance. By the end of the novel, Daphne was still making fat jokes about herself, so she clearly hadn't
Resolve that.
Yeah, resolve that issue. Although in the first part, it would make you seem that
she was almost there.
Yeah, she was almost there and she felt good about herself, but really no.
Yeah.
And you just learned that clearly Daphne didn't think that highly of hers. Sorry, I'm getting worked up. Clearly Drew didn't think that highly of herself.
Either.
So why are you still making those comparisons? You just learned.
Yeah.
Another thing is Darcy hadn't told her family about her girlfriend. That could have, you worked it into the first part, resolve it by the end.
Yeah.
It just it was all these.
It would have also, Darcy telling her family or coming out to her family would have added to the theme of complicated family.
Exactly, yeah. And then lastly, I just wrote Drew died still feeling insecure about herself as being a good person. So she passed away and she was murdered with this conscience of being a bad person when really she was doing all this work
to change.
But she still died with that notion because in the scene before her death, she was crying, she was visibly upset. So that just really aggravated me. I was like, you have all these female characters that have so much potential to make these huge revelations and huge changes in their lives, but they're not going to after something so traumatic.
So question 4, how might the story be different if it was from another character's point of view?
So I tried to envision the book from different points of view, but basically what I ended up doing was just rewriting the book. Rewriting the circumstances and the plot. I listed, it would have been very interesting if the book were from Lila's point of view.
Yeah.
But then that would have, it just would have completely...
It would have been a different book.
A different book, because it would have been about her, being abandoned by her family, kicked out, growing that like anger inside of her. Did you think of it?
I think this story would have been different from a lot of different characters' points of view. But if we had Emma as the protagonist, we would have heard the internal debate of loving your life with your hardworking single mother, but wishing you could be part of the life your father leads. If we heard the story from Drew's perspective, it would have been about a glamorous life in the public eye, but not having a true connection with anyone in your personal life. And the struggle to choose between fortune and fame with Stuart, or hard work and true love with Aditya. The book also would have been more about complicated family relationships rather than just a theme to compare between the characters. Because that's what the author was hoping you would do. You were comparing Drew's relationship with her father to Daphne's relationship with her father, to Daphne's relationship with her mother, to Darcy's relationship
to Nick, who didn't know his father.
And also did not know his mother. Like, that could have been way more developed, rather it was just used as a tactic to compare for the other characters. Even Leela, they all had very different family lives, and that could have been more pronounced in the book.
Yes. I made a note of mentioning how I think the story would have been probably really like funny, or like at least like kind of sarcastic funny from Mrs. Kavanaugh's perspective. Because it would have been, because like there's this one scene in the hospital and Daphne goes up to her and she realizes that Drew's mother knew the whole time about these illegitimate children. But she was like, no, not poor Emma. No, that darling's so sweet.
Can you imagine being in the hospital and having to defend your husband's illegitimate daughter
while your daughter's dead
of murder? Like that would have been amazing. Develop that character, but we never got that. But it would have been a good story. The next question number 5, was, does this story have an antagonist or villain? What traits does this character reveal about this story's hero?
So you want to answer this one first?
I said obviously the main antagonist of the story was Leela, but that was from the perspective that we were given. She reveals the trait of naivety in Daphne, contrasts the idea of getting revenge, because Daphne, although bad things happened to her, she never considered revenge. And those are things that she could have considered, given all the things that had happened to her.
As motive.
So she revealed that naivety, and she contrasts the idea of revenge. But I think that there were other antagonists of the story. Mr. Kavanaugh was an antagonist. We considered him an antagonist in another plot that we wish could have been developed, and maybe we'll get into that later on in the book. But even so, he was awful, and he was the main villain in Drew's story.
So I said that, yes, like Carmelina said, obviously like the antagonist was Leela, because she was the main problem in the plot. But what I basically said was, I don't think that the story had a main antagonist, because when you look, yes, the story was told from Daphne's perspective. It was first person. But if you looked from a third person objective stance, you can say that there really wasn't one, but rather that they were all their own antagonists based on their own insecurities. So much so that their own perceptions of their failures bended their own self-control. So for instance, in Daphne's case, the issues with her outward appearance made her require that attention and love from Drew so much when
that it caused her to be a bad friend to Darcy.
And that's why she chose Darcy in school, and that's why years later she found herself accepting Drew's request to be her maid of honor. Because if she really had dealt with those issues and like she claimed to be so self-accepting now, or no, she wasn't claiming, because she's still, in the book, the author wrote points where she'd still be like looking at a photo of herself and she couldn't look directly at herself and stuff like that. So she hadn't completely tackled it, and that's not what we were trying to say earlier. But for somebody who's taking that lead and trying desperately to change for the better, to so easily succumb to that request,
toxic relationship,
it shows that you don't have that self-control yet. And that means you're your own antagonist. Why would you put yourself in that situation when you know it's probably not going to be the best? And even if you didn't know it, you had other people in your life saying, don't go down that road, that's just stupid. So ultimately it is the internal struggle that leads Daphne to making the mistakes she did. And then I said for Nick, as another example, he went through great measures to keep his secret about who he truly is, because it's an insecurity for him. Growing up in that small town where everybody knows your family issues. And so, like, in the book, he so quickly found out, like, if he really wanted to find out who his father was and learn more about his his background and his family, he could have easily done it, clearly, because in the book they did it in like a day. So if he wanted to, he could have done that for himself on his own, but he didn't. And the fact that, you know, he made certain choices based on those insecurities led him to that path. So for number 6, the question is, are there any particularly striking visual symbols in the book? What do you think they represent? So we noticed one pretty early on in the book.
Yeah, we both actually. I hadn't even really finished the book yet, and
it was like, it's there. It's. Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Water is a visual symbol that comes to mind when thinking of Big Summer. The epigraph of a poem of a drowning man. Christina lives alone on a cliff over a large body of water. They have the rehearsal dinner on a beach. Daphne is intimate with Nick in a hot tub. Drew is found dead in that hot tub.
Same hot tub, which I think
everything to do with water.
Yeah.
For some characters, water represents solitude, sinking, depth, isolation. For others, water brought forth the feeling of weightlessness. So it was such a huge
motif.
Water. But it kind of fell through at the end of the book, and water wasn't even mentioned at the end.
No, there was where
the only thing, Leela threatened to kill Daphne in a tub.
In a tub.
In a bathtub. But I mean,
that's like why, like, the symbol of water, it's like it connects to that whole idea of, you know, they were their own antagonists. You choose to seek out the water, like it's like that force, and I think that's what it could have become. The author didn't make it such. It could have become
the last page or last 5 pages had something to do with
water. Yeah, because
it would have been a full circle, and that actually would have satisfied a lot of the things that I think were missing in the book. If that theme of water had at least been concluded. Okay, now on to something a little bit more lighthearted. If you were making this book into a movie, who would you cast in the lead roles? So we kind of came up with this one together because it's too hard to think. You know, you have a picture in your head of who you would imagine.
Yes.
When it comes to
picking somebody
a celebrity
who
you think
who would play
fit the role, it's
much
so
harder.
hard. Yeah, at one point we were Googling, you know, attractive curly brown haired guys.
Because we were just like, who is there?
Yeah.
And who is there that isn't from like our generation that we grew up with TV shows and movies?
Our generation. We're 20 and 25 years old.
No, but
we grew up on Friends.
But exactly,
now
but
they're all in their
50s and they're looking for 20 and 25-year-olds.
So for us,
it was a struggle.
Jennifer Aniston, beautiful blonde woman.
Yeah,
but it's also she's supposed to be a 25-year-old.
Yeah.
Woman. So what we came up with was Danielle McDonald as Daphne, and some of you may know Danielle McDonald as the lead Willow Dean in Dumpling.
Dumpling, yeah.
Amber Heard as Drew, and she is from Aquaman. Naomi Scott as Darcy. Zac Efron as Nick. And we thought of Dev Patel as Aditya, and Taylor Grubbs as Leela. So, I mean, that's a pretty good cast. We had come up with some other ones, like Michelle Pfeiffer as Mrs. Lathrop Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
And there were some other ones.
We don't need to.
But like,
we'll let Hollywood do that first.
Yeah. If they want to take our suggestions, that's fine.
Please, yeah.
We also really want to see this as a movie.
I think it would be...
This book lends itself really good.
Yes.
Will lend itself really well to screen.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, and lastly, what is your favorite moment or quote? So, what did you say?
Okay, so my favorite moment is it's the chapter where Daphne is recalling the summer she spent with her grandmother. And this isn't because it's heartwarming or it was so well written. It was just a favorite moment because I think the author did a very good job of making it
relatable.
Very relatable. It's so universal to anybody.
To a lot of women who struggle with
to a lot of girls'
image.
Yeah, because basically this moment, Daphne was recalling a summer in which she was around, I think like 8, maybe 10.
Something like that.
And her grandmother came over to watch her while her parents were away teaching at a summer camp.
Yep.
And started placing her on these diets and
Weight Watchers.
Going to Weight Watchers and, you know, not swimming for fun, but swimming to do laps.
Exercise.
And there's this one particular moment where the little girl runs over to the neighbors and she says it as if it's just like to pet the cat. But she goes into their kitchen and sneaks stale marshmallows
and chocolate
and bitter
baking chips,
bitter chocolate. And she thinks that that's like the best thing she's tasted in a while. And just that whole scene of like
when the parents come back and they see that she's clearly lost some weight, and
she's like,
they,
oh no,
the author did a really good job of letting us visualize like pure despair.
You just
for the parents.
feel it.
Like
You
it was like
how she described push yourself away from the table.
Yeah, the push-up diet.
Yeah.
And,
you don't eat everything on your plate.
What is the push-up diet? You push yourself away, push up away from the table.
Because it gives you control. You're in control. You don't need to be told what.
I think that this was a really important part, because you might not have been brought to a Weight Watchers meeting, or might not have
been told by your grandma to
stop eating.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of us can resonate with that feeling of maybe
at one
feeling
point,
that we're disappointing a family member because we are bigger.
Yeah, even just that. Even if it's not a family member, but just that switch at some point, maybe in your life,
where
that
you're just a growing kid, but then the next day you are eating, you're consuming too much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right.
So what was your favorite moment?
Favorite moment or quote was the prologue describing Christina's life, because seriously, this part of the book was so good.
It was so captivating.
Was so good, because I feel like I could have Jennifer Weiner write a whole book just on Christina's life. And the part that really was good was like Christina bent down and started to sing, and then they insert lyrics from the Beatles' Blackbird song. Her story was almost at its end, but that night she had no idea. Like I was like, I'm shook.
And you just
keep reading.
The way I love that. You're so right. The way she described that first in that first prologue. Oh my gosh, you felt like you were there in that house, and you felt that the sun was shining on your cheek, and that
or the wind breeze, and there was the sun had gone down. And you were wrapping your shawl.
The way she described little Aiden with his little pail of blueberries. Like you could so vividly see it. Yeah.
So that was my favorite moment, because it set up a whole different path that the book actually did not go down. Yeah. These are the ways that we thought the book was gonna go. So like I thought that you were gonna find out that Drew's father actually murdered her, and that it was an insurance fraud, that he was gonna get her inheritance because they were bankrupt, and that Aditya was, we didn't know who he was, but there was a man outside, and he said that he was a colleague of Drew's father, and I thought he had overheard something, and he was going to kind of reveal to her what was going to happen and try to prevent it.
Yeah, that he was in on it, but he didn't actually want to go through with it.
That would have been a good one, because then it really would have been a book about complicated families.
Yeah. So I actually thought that the mother was alive. It would be revealed to us at the end of the book, and that's why they weren't actually never able to like properly solve it. But it was because she had to disappear, because Drew's father, Mr. Kavanaugh, put a hit on her life, and like she had to disappear. And the mom's boyfriend, that was
and that's why he was being very evasive about who
going back there and having the wedding on the Cape and everything. Oh, and that's another thing that we were upset with.
The title wasn't very representative of the book. I thought that Cruel Summer would have been another one.
Yeah.
So they're cruel to themselves, they're cruel to each other.
Yeah, there's no
Big Summer, not so much.
We just thought, it was
just a play off of
her size
aspect.
It was just like so unnecessary.
Yeah, I don't think it had nothing to do with her size.
Her size by the end of it.
It was just that everyone was insecure.
Yeah. Okay, so final recommendation. I personally think if you're looking for a page turner, go ahead, read that book. It was a good book, because like I did read it in like a week, because I couldn't put it down. I wanted to figure out the ending.
All right, so we got to mention that we did put together a big summer playlist on our Spotify.
It's better than the book.
It's good. It's really good. We picked really good songs. So actually give it a listen, and then go to our community, our forum page on our website. And if you have any recommendations for the playlist, tell us what you would put on that playlist.
Yeah, please.
I'm anxious to know what.
Because I've literally been listening to this playlist nonstop.
It's my treadmill playlist right now. Yeah, it's really good for the treadmill. And other than that, we're going to introduce our book of the month for July.
So July's read is All the Missing Girls.
It's been 10 years since Nicolette left Cooley Ridge. 10 years since she broke up with Tyler, the man she thought she'd marry. 10 years since her best friend Corinne disappeared, never to be heard of from again. It's an astonishing debut thriller with a jaw-dropping twist. The story is told backwards.
I've already started reading it. I'm about 100 pages in. It is so good. This is the author's first adult fiction. The only other books that she's written were like young adult teen fiction. It is so descriptive. You feel like you're there, or you feel like you are Nick yourself. So I'm very excited to continue reading it. I'm very excited to put some songs to this book.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yes.
So I'm excited to give that one a read too, and then you guys can look forward to, in the beginning of August, our recap for this book, All the Missing Girls.
Hope to see you soon.